And joining us now with more on the Israeli-Pfizer data sharing agreement is Professor Manfred Green, Director of the Masters in Public Health program at the University of Haifa. Professor, thank you so much for being with us. Now, our data sharing agreement...
Shalom. Hi.
Thank you so much. Now, our data sharing agreement with Pfizer was released in part for the public's viewing. In your expert opinion, what data does Pfizer really need to analyze the vaccine's efficacy?
Okay, basically, what's happening is that the Ministry of Health is collecting data that by law they collect. It's a notifiable disease, so by law they collect that data, and they're collecting data on vaccination. It's obviously very important to the ministry and to others to make sure that we can evaluate the efficacy of the vaccine. So this same data will be used to look at the extent to which we see efficacy of the vaccine in what we would call the post-marketing era, because the vaccine has been approved for use. There's no problem with the vaccine. The sharing with Pfizer is basically to share that same data, and as I understand from the agreement, it will simply be a technical way of actually sharing the data in a more user-friendly manner. But I would add that I would assume that that kind of data will be made available to the public, or at least to investigators in the public, to use at the same time. So that would be the only thing that I would see as something that should be made
so
clear.
let's get to the heart of most Israelis' concerns. Is any of the data that Israel will be providing Pfizer, would you consider any of that data unethical to provide them or unnecessary to provide them?
It's not at all. It's anonymous data. We use it all the time. I'm not even adding the fact that we're under emergency conditions, but without those emergency conditions, this is data that is essential for the public health. So if Pfizer is helping with the analysis of that data, that's something that would be very much appreciated. I just think that, and this data, as I said, is data that is actually available usually to investigators outside of the Ministry of Health. It's anonymous data.
So what data would qualify as unethical in your opinion?
It depends really under the circumstances. Basically, the data that would be unethical for not going through, not ethical, but would have to go through a Helsinki or a human use committee, are data that are identifiable or potentially identifiable. And there doesn't seem to be any evidence that that's occurring at the moment.
And then going back to what you said previously, then, again, assuming based on your word that this is publicly available data in the first place and that it is ethical to be sharing, especially given the time, is that a sort of situation where the ends justify the means?
Yeah, I think this ministry should make it clear. The only thing that they're doing, and that's very useful, obviously, is they're going to make the data more available in a much more user-friendly way. And that's something that we've been encouraging all the time. So that's why I say it's a good thing that they're doing it with a company, because then it'll be available to other investigators and it'll be available to the ministry. So I think that in fact this is a very good actually objective. That the fact that it has to remain anonymous is obvious. That it must be very clear that there will be no divulgement of any of the personal data.
All right, Professor Manfred Green, thank you so much for sharing your time.
Thanks very much.